Sure, I've been down here a few times with the beautiful John Byrne and the gang, and yeah, it looks great, looks amazing. So now, you've had an incredible career in this front. I'm thinking, here you are, mid-1980s, you move over to America, you'd been, powerlifting champion, you'd done the junior world championship, you'd sort of competed for Ireland.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, at that point in your life, was this a sort of a plan, or was it just, like a lot of people, it just sort of happened to you?
No, I kind of fell into this. Like I said, my background was, I've been a weightlifter, I was a competitive weightlifter for 20 years, here. Represented Ireland before I moved to the US, and then I competed in the US. And when I moved to the US, I continued competing in powerlifting. So I was competing in powerlifting through my 20s. I probably stopped, I guess, in my late 30s, stopped competing in powerlifting. And I played rugby also, played rugby in New York. And then once I stopped powerlifting, I always worked in the fitness business. So my introduction to rowing, indoor rowing, was through the fitness business.
Right.
So right around the time I started working in the US, I worked in an exclusive personal training gym. The indoor rower had just kind of come on the market at that time. This is late 80s.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was a great machine, and that's when I started using it. And then when I got out of powerlifting, I started focusing more on fitness than on strength. Got into cycling and got into really using the indoor rower, and discovered that indoor rowing is a sport. It's a worldwide sport and very fast growing sport. And so really started train for a competition. And I found it to be the most challenging sport I've ever done. I mean, I'm not a natural endurance athlete. I've never been a marathoner or a runner, but competing in weightlifting and rugby and so on, nothing compared to rowing as far as I'm concerned. It was just a very, very challenging exercise, very effective.
Just to jump back now to the start, and here's me, a fit old man, like I'll sit over here because my leg's giving away. But that idea then of leading up to going to America in the mid-1980s, and you are doing the powerlifting and all that, was that a family thing? Was it just something that came from?
No, absolutely, yeah. So growing up as a kid, I was just fascinated with the US because all my aunts and uncles had moved over there.
All right.
So every summer I had aunts and uncles coming back to visit the family in Bray. So from a very early age, I kind of wanted to go there. And then before I actually moved there, I'd been there on a holiday.
And what about the fitness though? Is that something that you just sort of came up to from school?
No, I always had a love of fitness. I started getting into fitness in school, playing soccer and rugby. And then in my teens, I started getting interested in lifting weights. And then I started bodybuilding. I competed as a bodybuilder as a teenager. Wow. I actually won I won the intermediate Mr. Ireland. That was in the early 80s, I guess. And then I got into powerlifting through bodybuilding. So yeah, I've always been involved in sports. It's always been my passion. And even now, here we are, 30 years later or more, I'm still as passionate about fitness as I've ever been.
I know for some people, it's sort of that sort of passion triggers from either being overweight when they're small, or there's a sort of a kind of a culture around them that others are doing it and they get into it. I don't know whether for you it was.
Yeah, kind of. In my family, my dad was, he wasn't an athlete, but he was a big GAA fan and played Gaelic when he was younger. So we were very fitness conscious. I'm the youngest of 6, so all my older brothers either played soccer or one of them boxed. So yeah, we were always very fitness conscious.
Did it strike you as that being Irish and having this great reputation when you arrive over there, that suddenly you're in this teaching in this as a private New York fitness club, as you said, but you're people like JFK Jr. and Bonnie Raitt, and there's major names coming through the door. Right. Did that sort of surprise you, or did you feel like you were sort of a little bit treated as exotic, or I don't know whether you were seen as exotic?
Some people, the fact that I was Irish was a little bit exotic, I suppose, to some people, because as you know, so many Americans have connections to Ireland. Certainly JFK Jr. did.
Sure.
So I trained him regularly, and Bonnie Raitt when she was in town, and a number of other celebrities. I mean, we had a whole load of celebrities working out there. Madonna used to work out there, but I never trained her. But so I was treated as a little bit of a.
Were you ever head spun by that? Because it's quite a big leap.
Absolutely. At very first I was actually. I saw that movie recently, Brooklyn. She goes to work in the high-end store. And she's really intimidated dealing with these very rich people, and it was a little bit like that for me. I could really relate to it, but I got over it soon enough. And of
course, what they crave is real people. They're surrounded by yes men and yes women. The idea that somebody who's not from that world has a little bit of authenticity about them.
Yeah.
That feeling, then you do that from 86 to 96 and 1997. You open up your own gym, and that's like a good 20 years you're doing that. It must have felt certainly a lot of that time that, well, this is my life now, this is where I'm going to be, because the fact that you came back to Ireland in 97 was, you know, that's
No, I came back to Ireland
in 2017,
2017,
yeah, sorry. So like 20 years after that feeling of you being, I don't know, part of the scene in New York, was it always an intention to come back home?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, you know, if you'd asked me maybe 5 years ago, do I have any plans to move back to Ireland, I probably would have said no, I really don't, because I actually lived in the US longer than I've lived here. Like, and I lived in New York all that time, and like I consider myself a New Yorker. I'm a US citizen, and New York was my home.
Right.
And no, I wasn't really planning on moving back, but things changed. The fitness business has changed over there. The city's changed. New York is very different to the city I moved to. The country's changed, as you know. But the main reason I decided to move back was that my lease went up on my business, and after 20 years, I could have renewed it. I was renting the space, but the rent went up, and I just decided it was time to move. And then the next decision was, you know, what am I going to do next? Am I going to start anew or get a job? Or it made sense to come back here because my mom was still alive. She was since deceased. She was quite old.
Sorry. Right.
And then I just, once I made the decision, I decided, well, I'm going to try and re-establish myself in the fitness business back in Ireland. And nobody was doing the rowing that I was aware of. So I sold pretty much all my equipment except my row machines. So I shipped back like half a dozen row machines that you see in here,
right,
combined with the ones that the rowing club owns, and we've got actually 11 machines here, so I can have 10 people in the class.
Wow.
But like I said, that when I decided to move back, I did intend doing something with rowing.
Was it at all like I don't know, it took a little bit of getting used to, because, you know, we're all the same to some degree now because the internet and all that opens us up to, we are sort of aware of the rest of the world, but coming back to a country that you grew up in, and it's like, you know, 30 years later plus, it must have, I don't know whether it felt like a culture shock to sort of step back into it, or whether it's all one big happy family now.
No, actually I was surprised. I've really adjusted very well. I mean, my friends can't believe me when you know, because, you know, all that time I was in the States, I would come home every year on holidays, and like after a week or two back home, I'd be anxious to get back to New York, back to my home in New York, and back to my business.
Right.
And now they ask me, "Do you not miss New York?" And it's like, I really don't. I actually don't. I never thought I'd say that, but you know, once I made the decision to move back, I knew that there was some kind of finality to it. You know, although I'm a citizen, I can go back any time I want.
Yeah.
Whether I'll make it my home again, probably not. I'm very happy to move back, and I adjusted very, very well. And so for me, at this stage of my life, it's not about where I live; it's more about how I live.
Right.
You know, and lifestyle is always very important to me. You know, to be able to live the fitness lifestyle, and fortunate I've been able to do that here.
Well, it's great that, you know, they say with any kind of business, timing is a huge part of it, and you've arrived in a country that's very aware of its health, and much more aware than we've ever been before about our diet and how we're treating our bodies. So there's obviously a kind of a strong kind of a, you know, market, we'll say. There's a sense that this is the right place to be doing this, and I would think Greystones in particular seems, more than many towns, just to be very aware of its health.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm not from Greystones. I'm from Bray, but I did notice.
Have you got your papers with you? Can you just...
But I did notice that, just when you see it in Bray too, but more so in Greystones, I noticed there seems to be a culture of health and fitness.
Well, we're all very attractive, so just if you can get the body in shape, the whole thing is
yoga pants and all that, you know. So before I moved here, I was operating out of a gym in Bray, a new gym in Bray.
You're right.
And I was there for about 6 months, but I had a very young membership, and you know, that was not my market. Is more mature,
right,
kind of demographic, and most of the people who are taking my classes are people our age, you know, kind of middle age,
20s, 30s. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
So
very late 20s.
Yeah. So, you know, people who are more concerned about their health and their fitness, they're not concerned about their biceps and their pecs, you know. And
what is it, because you've done so much in the fitness fields, what is it about rowing that sort of connected with you? Because you're talking about it, you know, you'd had the cycling, you'd had, you know, obviously the lifting and so many different kind of, you know, exercises, that suddenly the rowing kind of made that connection. Is it something in particular about it?
Yeah, there is. It's just that there's nothing like it, in my opinion. It's such a total body complete workout that, you know, that builds endurance and strength. It's terrific. And
but it has that swimming, I guess, you know, that sense of like you're using all your limbs,
also.
But it has that similar thing where you're using your legs and your arms and you're sort of swimming on dry land.
Yeah, but I would argue that, I mean, swimming is a great exercise. You're using your whole body, but you know, there's disadvantages to swimming. The fact that you're buoyant in the water, you know, it's weight supported. rowing is a lot more leg involvement than there would be in swimming, and it's very leg intense. But most people, that's the big misconception. There's a lot of misconceptions about rowing, but the biggest one is people think rowing's an upper body exercise because they think about this.
Well, they see people out in the boat. They think that's all.
No, rowing it's much more about your legs. It's really a lower body exercise, and the machines here, where they're designed to simulate rowing in a boat, like a scull that has a sliding seat.
Right.
Not so much the boats we have here, which are fixed seats. So these are designed to simulate sculling. Like Olympic
like
rowing.
The Oxford and Cambridge and all that,
what the O'Donovan brothers do. I mean, and like Olympic rowers like the O'Donovans, they would do a huge amount of training on these machines.
Right.
But because it's such a precision exercise machine, it's such a great workout. But like anybody can use it. Anybody can row. Anybody of any age and any fitness level can row because it's, the intensity is completely user controlled. Many people think rowing, they associate rowing with high intensity exercise,
right?
And it doesn't have to be. I mean, it can be done at any
level you're.
Yeah.
Well, we should say you're right down here at the rowing club on the harbour. It's a great spot. You've got the room permanent. You've got a good setup here.
Yeah.
And we put all the links in, the contact details. You're generally here, like 6 days a week. And
right now the class schedule is evening time. There's an 8 p.m. class Monday through Thursday. There's a 6 p.m. class Monday and Friday. There are 2 morning classes on Saturday, and I just added some early midweek classes.
Beautiful.
Like 7, 8 a.m.
Well, we'll keep people in touch with what, when new classes pop up and any changes and shifts, we'll let people know. But obviously with the contact details and the links straight into your own website, they'll be able to tell.
Yeah.
But nicely done. I might get some shots of you looking very muscular now and then.